There comes a moment when a person sits quietly, overwhelmed not by noise, but by the burden of trying to be everything to everyone. A heart that once beat freely now struggles under the weight of opinions, judgments, and expectations. You say what they want to hear, you do what they want to see, you become what they want you to be, and somewhere along the way you forget who you are, and more dangerously, you forget who you were created for. You wake up every morning editing yourself, you dress for their gaze, you speak for their approval, you walk cautiously, afraid of stepping outside the lines they've drawn for you. And while they smile, you shrink. While they praise you, your soul cries, because deep down something knows the more you please them, the further you drift from the only one who truly matters. Every heart longs to be loved. Every soul desires to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be accepted. It is a natural human need. But when that longing turns into a desperate chase for approval, it begins to destroy you from the inside. It changes your intentions, it alters your sincerity, and it steals the tranquility that only comes from living for your Creator. When your every action begins to revolve around what others will say, what others will think, and how others will react, you are no longer living for Allah, you are living as a servant to people's opinions. And that in reality is a form of slavery. Chasing approval might bring temporary satisfaction. Someone praises your appearance, your achievements, your choices, you feel good for a moment. But what happens when that same person changes? What happens when the one who once clapped for you starts criticizing you? What happens when they withdraw their attention, or when their mood shifts, or when their standards no longer match yours? Suddenly your heart sinks. Suddenly you feel like you're not enough. Suddenly you begin to doubt every step you take. And that is the price of chasing their approval. It is fragile. It is inconsistent. It is based on emotions that were never in your control. There is no peace in constantly adjusting yourself to fit someone else's mold. There is no contentment in shrinking your values just to remain accepted. There is no barakah in abandoning the truth just to avoid criticism. The people whose approval you run after today are just as weak and flawed as you are. They don't own Jannah. They don't hold your soul. They don't control your future. And yet, how easily they become the standard by which you measure your worth. That is where the damage begins. You start compromising your prayer times because you're in company that doesn't understand its value. You start dressing differently because you're afraid of standing out. You avoid mentioning your faith because it might be too serious for the people around you. You hide your beliefs, you filter your words, you even smile when your heart disagrees just to remain accepted. But what about the acceptance of Allah? What about the gaze of the one who sees every compromise you make? What about the discomfort you feel every time you silence your conscience? That inner unrest, that sadness, you can't explain, that anxiety that never fully leaves, that is your soul reminding you, you were not made for this. The peace you are searching for will never come through people. No amount of likes, compliments, applause, or approval will silence the guilt of abandoning the truth. The sweetness you're chasing is not found in validation from creation, it's only found in obedience to the Creator. When you stop living for people's satisfaction and start living for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, something powerful happens. You breathe again. You pray with sincerity again. You stop fearing rejection. You stop apologizing for your identity. You speak the truth with calmness. You dress with purpose. You move through the world with clarity. That's not arrogance. That's the quiet strength of a soul anchored to the one who never changes. People will praise you today and forget you tomorrow. They will support you when it benefits them and abandon you when it doesn't. If your happiness depends on them, then you will always be one comment away from misery. But if your happiness is built on the pleasure of Allah, then even in the midst of criticism, you will feel protected. Even in the middle of rejection, you will feel seen. Even when you're misunderstood by the world, you will feel understood by the one who created you. Sometimes you will lose people when you speak the truth. Sometimes they will leave when you refuse to follow them into sin. Sometimes they will distance themselves when you no longer conform to their ideas. Let them go. Let them misunderstand you. Let them talk. Because if Allah is pleased with you, then you have not lost anything. But if He is displeased with you, then no amount of applause will benefit you. This life is too short to be spent in chains. Chains of fear, chains of insecurity, chains of endless comparison. You were created to walk with dignity, not to beg for love in places that were never meant to hold your heart. You were created to worship, not to perform. You were created to be real, not perfect. And your worth was never meant to be measured by people who cannot even carry their own burdens. There will be moments in your life when standing with the truth will feel like standing alone. The crowd may turn away. Friends may no longer call. You may walk into a room and feel like you do not belong. And yet, in that silence, in that loneliness, in that space where it seems the world has distanced itself from you, something remarkable begins to happen. The closeness of Allah becomes more real than ever before. Because when you choose Him sincerely, wholeheartedly, without conditions, He chooses you in ways that this world could never offer. When you choose Allah, it might mean turning away from what is popular. It might mean giving up what your heart was once attached to. It might even mean losing relationships that you thought were permanent. But what you gain is far greater than what you let go. You gain the companionship of the most loving. You gain the protection of the most powerful. You gain the help of the one who never leaves you, who never tires of your return, who listens even when no one else understands the language of your tears. There is nothing more beautiful than being chosen by Allah. And that choice begins with your own. He does not force you into obedience. He does not drag you toward Him. He opens the door and watches to see who will take the first step. When you take that step, even if it's trembling, even if it's uncertain, even if your heart is heavy with guilt and your hands are empty of deeds, He meets you with mercy. He meets you with kindness. He meets you with a forgiveness that erases years of distance in a single moment of sincerity. Choosing Allah does not mean your life will become perfect. It does not mean you will never face pain. In fact, sometimes the tests will increase because sincerity is tested through sacrifice. But within those trials, you will find something priceless. Peace that does not come from circumstances, strength that does not come from within, and a light that continues to shine even in your darkest nights. You begin to walk with a purpose, not to be seen by the world, but to be seen by the one who watches the intentions hidden deep in your chest. There may be times when you're invited to compromise your values for temporary benefit, moments when you are pressured to disobey just to fit in. Whispers that tell you it's just one time, it's just one step away, it's nothing major. But in those very moments, the angels are writing, the heavens are watching. And the one you turn toward or turn away from knows exactly what you chose. If you lower your gaze for His sake, He will lift your rank. If you walk away from sin for His pleasure, He will open doors that no one else can. If you cry in the night while the world sleeps, He will mention you in a gathering better than any crowd on earth. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be perfect to choose Allah. You just need to be honest, to admit your weakness, to acknowledge your need for Him, to ask Him to guide you, and then to hold on. Even when it's hard, you may fall, you may slip, but if your heart continues to turn back to Him, He will continue to bring you closer. That is His promise. And His promises never fail. There are people whose entire lives changed with a single decision to choose Allah. People who gave up haram for the sake of barakah. People who turned off the music and opened the Quran alayhi salam. People who left behind gatherings of sin and found better friends in the masjid. People who let go of relationships that were pulling them away from their Lord and discovered a love from Him that healed every scar. Their stories are not about perfection. They are about sincerity. They are about choosing Allah again and again until He chose them in return and honored them in both worlds. When Allah chooses you, He places you under His protection. He defends you when you cannot defend yourself. He shields your heart from what would break it. He gives you a light that confusion cannot extinguish. He answers your du'as in ways you never imagined. He brings you closer to Him through trials you never expected. And He writes your name among those who are remembered by Him in the highest company of angels. Do not think your efforts go unnoticed. That quiet istighfar on your way to work, that silent dua before you sleep, that moment you resist temptation when no one is watching, all of it is seen. All of it is written. All of it is loved by the one who knows your struggle even when others don't. When you choose Allah, He places contentment in your heart that money cannot buy. He removes burdens you thought would crush you. He gives you a vision beyond this world, a hope beyond this life. And one day, when your eyes close to this world, He will open them to gardens beneath which rivers flow, and it will all make sense. Every sacrifice, every tear, every lonely moment, it will all be worth it. There will come a time when your faith will not be applauded, when your modesty will not be admired, when your honesty will not be welcome, when your prayer will make others uncomfortable, not inspired. In those moments, you will feel the pressure of silence. You will feel the weight of standing alone. And that is when your true belief will be tested, not in ease, not in popularity, but in isolation, in resistance, and in the face of disapproval from those around you. Faith was never meant to blend in. It was always meant to stand out. The prophets before us were not loved for being agreeable. They were insulted, threatened, even harmed, not because they were rude or harsh, but because they carried a message that shook the comfort of falsehood. Truth makes people uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, but because it exposes what's been wrong for so long. And when you choose to carry that truth in your words, your actions, and your lifestyle, you become a reflection of what many are trying to escape. That's why it won't always be easy. That's why you won't always be welcome. But that's exactly where faith shines brightest, in the moments when it would have been easier to give in, but you didn't. In the moments when silence would have protected your popularity, but you chose to speak. In the moments when compromise would have gained you approval, but you chose obedience instead. These are the moments that count, the ones the angels record with honor, the ones that build your home in Jannah while others mock you on earth. It is easy to speak of faith when everyone agrees. It is easy to pray when everyone around you is doing the same. It is easy to dress modestly when the environment respects your choice. But what about when they laugh? What about when they question your values? What about when they label your devotion as extreme, outdated, or rigid? What about when you're the only one in a room of 100 holding on to what's right? That is where faith becomes real. That is where sincerity is proven. That is where hearts are measured not by the praise of people, but by the gaze of the Almighty. Allah never promised us ease in holding on to faith. He promised reward. He promised support. He promised His closeness. And He gave us stories of those who came before us and stood when standing came at a cost. A young man in a cave, speaking truth in a tyrant's palace. A woman refusing falsehood though her life was at stake. A boy choosing prison over disobedience. These were not just stories, they were reminders that being firm in faith has always required courage. It has always been tested through pain, but it has always ended in honor. The people who stand firm in their faith are not cold-hearted. They are not arrogant. They are not self-righteous. They are simply aware that their accountability lies with Allah, not with the ever-changing opinions of society. They know that one day, the very people who mocked them will not be able to help themselves, let alone defend others. They know that when the soul departs and the grave receives you, only your deeds will remain. So they make choices that last. They take paths that may be lonely now, but lead to eternal companionship later. If you are mocked for wearing hijab, remember you are following the footsteps of the most honored women in history. If you are insulted for praying on time, remember the Prophet ﷺ was stoned and bled for teaching people to connect with their Lord. If you are criticized for speaking truth in a gathering of falsehood, remember that Allah loves those who are not afraid to rise when the rest remain seated. If you are left out for not attending events filled with sin, remember the angels are writing your choices with pride. You are never truly alone. When Allah sees and appreciates every sacrifice, this world will tempt you with comfort in exchange for compromise. It will offer you platforms if you agree to hide your principles. It will offer you applause if you silence your truth. But the hearts of believers are not moved by these offers. They do not need validation from people when they already have the promise of their Lord. They do not need loud support when the heavens themselves are witnessing their struggle. They do not need to be understood by the world when they are understood by the one who made them. Be the person who holds on even when the rope feels thin. Be the one who continues praying even when others leave the prayer. Be the one who wears the Quran on their tongue and in their actions, even when it's no longer trendy. Be the one who remembers that what is right will always remain right, even if no one is doing it, and what is wrong will always remain wrong, even if everyone else is promoting it. Because on the day of judgment, you will not be asked how many people agreed with you. You will be asked whether you stayed true. Faith is not about being liked. It is about being loyal. It is about living with a heart that trembles before Allah, not before people. It is about saying no to what displeases Him, even when your nafs and your surroundings are screaming yes. It is about praying with humility, dressing with dignity, speaking with honesty, and walking with courage, not for the sake of image, but for the sake of truth. There is a prison that has no bars, no locks, no walls, and yet it traps more people than anything else in this world. It doesn't chain your hands or feet, but it suffocates your soul. It doesn't restrict your movement, but it restricts your freedom to be sincere. It doesn't come from an enemy, it comes from within. And it is built by one thing, the fear of what people will say. So many people are not living their lives, they are simply performing. Performing for family, for friends, for society, for strangers on screens they will never meet. Every decision becomes a calculation. What will they think? How will they react? Will I be judged? Will I still be accepted? And so, a person wakes up every morning and wears a mask not to hide from the world, but to be accepted by it. Not because they are dishonest, but because they are afraid. And slowly, day by day, they lose touch with who they really are. You see a man who wants to pray at work, but he holds back not because he doesn't believe, but because he fears being mocked. You see a woman who wants to wear her hijab properly, but she hesitates not because she doubts its beauty, but because she fears losing her social image. You see a youth who wants to walk away from gatherings of sin, but he stays not because he's proud of it, but because he fears rejection. This is the prison of people's opinions. It convinces you to betray your heart, to silence your conscience, and to walk a path that feels heavy with guilt just to be seen in a certain way. But what is that approval really worth? The people you fear so much, do they control your rizq? Do they own your soul? Will they defend you when your book is opened on the day of judgment? Will they intercede for you when your deeds are weighed? Number, and yet we allow their opinions to dictate our truth, their judgments to suppress our sincerity, and their silence to shape our worship. This prison does not only affect your outer choices, it eats away at your inner peace. You pray, but you're worried about how you look. You give charity, but you're thinking about who noticed. You speak the truth, but you soften it to remain popular. You serve in the community, but you burn out because your intention was tied to being acknowledged. And when no one praises you, when no one thanks you, when no one supports you, you begin to feel worthless. Why? Because your worth was attached to their reaction, not Allah's pleasure. The one who lives for people's approval will always be disappointed. Today they will love you, tomorrow they will forget you. The same people who lift you up can drag you down. Their standards change, their hearts shift, their loyalties fade. So if your goal is to be safe from criticism, understand this. Even the most beloved of creation, the most honest, the most kind, the most perfect in character was insulted, mocked, ridiculed, and rejected. Not because he was wrong, but because truth has always been heavy for those who refuse to carry it. You were not created to live in fear of people. You were created to live in awe of the one who sees every thought, every choice, every intention. When you seek his pleasure, you will be free. You will pray when it's time, even if no one around you does. You will speak the truth, even if your voice shakes. You will walk away from gatherings that harm your soul, even if it means sitting alone. You will dress with modesty, walk with dignity, and live with purpose, not because anyone applauds you, but because your heart is anchored to the one whose gaze matters most. True freedom is not in doing whatever you want. True freedom is in doing what's right without fear of what people will say. It's in carrying your faith with honor, not apology. It's in lowering your gaze when others raise theirs. It's in saying no when the world is pressuring you to say yes. It's in remembering that on the day when every soul stands alone, it is not people who will reward you or punish you, it is Allah. And the beauty is this: when you stop chasing people, Allah will send the right ones to you. He will place love for you in the hearts of those who matter. He will remove from your life those who are harming your soul. He will open doors you didn't even knock on, and you will find yourself surrounded by those who support your journey to Him, not distract you from it. There is something so powerful, so beautiful, and so deeply treasured in the sight of Allah that no one else can see it. It's not your status, it's not your face, it's not your wealth, your position, or how popular you are in the eyes of people. It is something that may never be known by the world, something that can't be captured in pictures, something that won't go viral online, yet it carries more weight than anything else. It is sincerity, the purity of your intention, the honesty of your heart when no one is watching, the quiet secret between you and your Lord. Sincerity is when you do something good, not for recognition, not for applause, not for praise, but because you want Allah to be pleased with you. It's when you pray at night and no one hears you but Him. It's when you help someone without needing them to know. It's when you cry in dua, not because anyone is watching, but because your heart aches for your Lord's mercy. These are not acts that trend on social media. These are not deeds that get you attention. But in the sight of the one who sees what is hidden, they shine brighter than anything else. This world teaches us to be seen, to showcase everything we do, to seek appreciation from people, to make sure our goodness is noticed. But sincerity teaches you to hide it, to protect it, to guard your intention like a priceless treasure, because the moment you do it for someone else, it becomes empty. It looks the same on the outside, but its weight in the hereafter begins to vanish. The prayer done for attention, the charity given for praise, the kind words spoken just to be admired, all of it loses its reward when the intention is not for Allah. That's why sincerity is so special, because it cannot be faked. You can fool people, you can impress a crowd, you can even gain a reputation of being pious and spiritual. But you cannot deceive the one who created your heart. He knows the exact reason why you did what you did. He knows if it was for Him or if it was to feed the ego. And on the day of judgment, when all masks fall away and every secret is laid bare, sincerity will be what separates deeds that survive from those that turn into dust. There will be people whose prayers were long, whose voices were beautiful in recitation, whose charity changed lives, but their deeds will be thrown back at them. Not because the deeds were wrong, but because the intention was never right. They wanted people to say, what a generous man, or what a beautiful reciter, or what a righteous woman, and that's exactly what they got. Their reward was taken in this world, and nothing remains in the next. That's the danger of living for people's praise. You get what you wanted, but you lose what you needed most. And then there will be people whose names were unknown, people whose deeds never made it to a single post or video, people who walked this earth quietly, without fanfare, without applause. But every step they took for Allah was recorded. Every sincere dua, every hidden act of charity, every effort they made to please Him alone was preserved. And on the day when nothing is hidden, they will be honored in front of all creation. Their light will shine, their scale will be heavy, because while they were hidden on earth, they were celebrated in the heavens. Sincerity doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean every deed is grand. It means you do what you can with what you have purely for the sake of Allah. It means you apologize when you've wronged someone, not to save your image, but to please your Lord. It means you forgive others not to look noble, but because you know that Allah loves those who forgive. It means you make sacrifices in private tears, efforts, choices, because you want His reward, not people's attention. There is something incredibly liberating about sincerity. When you stop caring about how you appear and start focusing on how you are in the sight of Allah, you find peace. You stop worrying about being praised or being seen. You begin to enjoy the sweetness of worship, the calm of hidden good deeds, the beauty of praying and knowing no one needs to know. And even when no one thanks you, even when your efforts go unnoticed, your heart remains content because you didn't do it for them, you did it for Him. And the reward of sincerity is never small. A small act done with a sincere heart can outweigh mountains of deeds done for show. A single sincere tear shed in repentance can erase years of sin. A single heartfelt dua made when no one is watching can change the entire course of your life. That's the power of sincerity. It connects your small efforts to a Lord whose generosity has no limit. So walk quietly if you must, but walk sincerely. Let the world forget your name so long as it is written in the heavens. Let your deeds be hidden in this life so they shine in the next. Don't live for the eyes that blink and forget. Live for the one who sees and never forgets. Because when this world turns its back, when people move on, when the lights fade and the voices fall silent, it will be your sincerity that speaks for you. And if Allah accepts even one sincere deed from you, that alone can be your salvation. So guard your heart, purify your intention, and remember, it is not how much you do, but why you do it. That is where the reward lies. That is where the beauty begins.